beautiful Monday, the 18th of March. There is a lot to get into today. The man that knows more college basketball than anybody. The man who lives his life to watch college basketball. John Rothstein will inform us about these brackets coming up at 3:30. We will address the Johnny Crybabies, who are very upset that they did not get what they wanted.
What are you,
last
blowing
night.
a rock over here?
Yes, I am honoring the rock with that line.
Man.
We will address the Johnny Crybabies coming up a little bit later on, plus audio proof that Tom Brady is a whiny little bitch. With that said, this weekend in New York sports could have been great or terrible depending on your rooting interest. So, personally, as a New York Islander fan, it was a terrible weekend. As a Brooklyn Net fan, it was a terrible weekend. For the New York Mets, it was a blow weekend. But I am here to tell you that I don't know how many weekends have been as enjoyable for me as a New York Jets fan than what I witnessed this weekend. And I'm going to try not to cry and get too emotional because it was that damn awesome. Number one, let's start with my quarterback. Aaron Rodgers, whether you like it or not, is fully committed to quarterbacking the New York Jets. He will officially not be the running mate of Robert F. Kennedy Jr., and we all wish Miss Nicole Shanahan best of luck as she runs as the vice president alongside RFK in November. So, number one, my quarterback is focused on the prize. Number two, as free agency began last week, Tiki, you may have noticed, I was a little upset. I was a little jumpy. I was a little angry. I was not giving Joe Douglas time. In fact, I kept saying Joe Douglas is napping Joe Douglas.
Oh, you of little faith.
Me of little faith. Because on Friday night, Joseph Arthur Martinez Douglas not only signed the best left tackle on the market in Tyron Smith, he got him in a masterclass of negotiations. When you look at how much of that contract is guaranteed, when you look at, hey, if he earns all $20 million, it was well worth it. And now Joseph Arthur Martinez Aloysius Douglas has put together one of the premier offensive lines in the NFL. So football fans, Jet fans, Americans, who the hell is stopping us now? Aaron Rodgers is committed. The offensive line has been fixed. Douglas knows he's got a move or two to make at wide receiver. It leaves the first round of the draft open to many different possibilities. I got to tell you, there's a reason why my beard is white and green today. I am as giddy as a Jet fan as I've been in a while. Hallelujah! What up?
I am just frustrated at ourselves because Aaron Rodgers told us exactly what he was doing. We just didn't want to listen. We wanted to jump to conclusions about what Aaron Rodgers would be doing to come this spring and fall. And we thought, because we are, I don't know, reactionary like that he was going to be running for vice president with Robert F. Kennedy Jr., and he was also going to be trying to play football for the New York Jets. But about a week prior to that, he told us something. Sat down in an interview. I don't even remember who it was with because it wasn't Pat, so I don't remember who it was with. And he basically said, yeah, I could play 2 or 3 or 4 more years.
4 more years?
And on our mind, we're like, oh, he's giving an intimation that he's going to be vice presidential candidate. No, what he was actually saying is in 4 years, I'm going to try to do something like that. In 4 more years, I'm going to go get into politics. It's probably not going to be as a vice presidential candidate, but I'm setting you guys up. Remember this whole thing that since he was even intimated to being a part of New York society, Fabric Sports Society with the New York Jets back last offseason, I said this dude has a master of manipulatory skills in media and for us as fans and observers and commentators on what he's doing. He manipulated us to think that he was going to do something as crazy as try to run for the vice presidency and play football. But instead, he set us up to talk about it so that he got introduced into the political world. And in 4 years, he's going to go do whatever he's going to do in politics.
Brilliance.
It was, I can't tell you how brilliant that is.
It was brilliant because you know what else he did, which you're kind of alluding to, but not fully, how he got us distracted. He got us distracted from the brilliance of Joe Douglas. Because while I did complain about napping Joe, we were not spending hours upon hours talking about the lackluster beginning to free agency.
No.
Aaron Rodgers had us distracted.
Yes, he did.
He had everybody distracted. And now we know that whatever he decides to do in 4 years, God bless him, best of luck. Best of luck. I have no ill will towards him in 4 years. Hopefully, in 4 years, I'm going to be so in love with him, I'll campaign for his ass. You go win me a Super Bowl, I'll quit WFAN, be your campaign manager, Mr. Rodgers. Whatever you want, sir. I'm probably speaking too extreme. I probably wouldn't do that.
You're not going to do that.
Because I'm going to be paid less money, and I don't want to do that?
Because I won't allow you.
Thank you. But right now, we have a committed quarterback who, he fooled us last week. He fooled me. I'd be the first to tell you. I thought he sounded like a guy that was campaigning, and maybe he is campaigning, but he's campaigning for 4 years from now.
4 more years.
So you've got a quarterback that's fully committed, and you have a general manager that I admit, early in the week, I was not thrilled with.
Yeah.
But when you look at the way things are falling, the Jets look pretty good.
Yeah, I got to tell you.
You have to admit it.
Look at the offensive line. You mentioned it. Obviously, Tyron Smith, that deal getting done over the weekend. They're likely to bring in another one of these free agent wide receivers, whether that's Mike Williams or whether that's Odell Beckham Jr. But just look at the offensive line. Like we talked about this with the Giants and how the Giants and Joe Shane had done such a good job of filling some holes in free agency. The Jets did the same.
Oh, they did.
Right?
All right.
It's Tyron Smith, the left tackle. A left guard is John Simpson, who we talked about earlier. Tippmann's a young player at center, so hopefully he rounds in AVT if he comes back to form. And then Morgan Moses, who they signed to come back as right tackle. Like all of a sudden they feel like they're okay. Right? It doesn't feel like there's a massive hole on the front line. And with Aaron Rodgers committed, and I think he always was committed, we just got a little bit distracted by a slow week in sports free agency, even though it wasn't a slow week. But Aaron Rodgers dominated that. He's back. He's committed. And they have everything they need to be as interesting as they were a year ago.
Say it. No. You didn't go all the way. You said interesting. I know what you want to say, but you're afraid to say it. You're afraid to say it in March.
I'm not a
You're
Jet
afraid
fan.
to say it about the Jets.
And I don't want to be the one that mushes them. I don't want to be the one that says, "Oh, they're in line to win a Super Bowl now. They're going to compete with the kid." I can't say that because as soon as somebody gets hurt or something goes awry, Tiki, you spoke it into existence.
No. I will not get mad at you. I think as an independent NFL broadcaster, as an IFO, an independent football observer, you should call it like it is, which is not that the Jets are favorites to win a Super Bowl. I think that's crazy. The New York Jets are Super Bowl contenders.
Yes.
That's the word. And Sean Morash and Tiki Barber, I give you credit for something. Last August, while we were all excited about this Jet season, you warned us, and you were right. You warned us about this offensive line, and you were right. You warned us about the question at left tackle with Dwayne Brown, and you were right. You warned us about relying on Mekhi Becton, and you were right. But now, when you look at this offensive line, Tyron Smith brings questions of durability. No doubt about it. I don't want to ignore that. But ask yourself this. Why would a future Hall of Fame left tackle at the age of 33 be available in free agency? The only way they'd be available in free agency is if there was some kind of question. And look, Tyron Smith last year went out and played 13 games. That's a pretty damn good number.
Yeah.
Now, if he misses 90% of the time, if he plays 4 games like he did in 2022 or 2 games like he did in 2020, yes, that's a problem. And the Jets need to build themselves accordingly. And I think that contract shows you that they are planning just in case.
Yes.
But they have added not an upgrade at left tackle. They have added a future Hall of Famer at left tackle. That's what the Jets just did. So I give you guys credit, both of you, for lifting the curtain last August for the things that could bring the Jets season down. Well, guess what? Took a while. Have they fixed it?
Certainly in a better place than they were a year ago, Evan.
Thank you, Sean. So, Jets are pretty good, aren't they?
Jets are a much better team than they were a year ago,
Oh, that
Evan.
pains you, doesn't it?
It doesn't pain me.
It stings a little bit.
It doesn't sting a little bit. I have questions about durability too, but there's no doubt Morgan Moses and Tyron Smith make the Jets infinitely better adding to their team than even remaining with Bryce Huff this year would have done. The Jets need to keep Aaron Rodgers off his Achilles upright, and they took major strides this weekend and over the past week to do so.
That's right.
How about you were right about the Giants last year? against us.
Yes.
And we were right about against the Jets against you.
Sometimes a clear mind helps you.
Sometimes it takes looking across the aisle to see the answer.
Well, also learning from our experiences, Tiki, we know a thing or two about crap offensive lines ruining seasons.
That's true.
No doubt about it. Look, the Jets are not a perfect team. The Jets under no means should go into next season as a favorite for any kind of Super Bowl or any kind of representation of a Super Bowl. I will never get to that place until they prove it. But what happened over the last 48 hours is that the cloud cover over this franchise and this offseason has cleared quite a bit. They have a quarterback who's committed fully to playing football this year. There is no questions about him being distracted because he's got to go to Iowa on a Tuesday night to campaign. That's gone. He's playing football. He is focused on football. The other thing they've done is they've improved this offensive line. And I'm not done yet because the New York Jets are going to have a premium draft pick in a little over a month. A little over a month from now, the New York Jets will be picking 10th in the first round of the NFL draft. 4 days ago, I would have said to you, left tackle, left tackle, left tackle, left tackle. As we sit here today, would I mind them drafting another offensive lineman? I would not, for a myriad of reasons. Number one, what if there isn't health from Elijah Vera-Tucker for a third straight year? What if there isn't health from Tyron Smith, who 2 of the last 4 years has missed a big chunk of the season? So A, it protects you, and B, it builds you towards the future. Maybe you would benefit to have a young offensive lineman sit for a year if everybody stays healthy. We don't do that anymore. Guys are just thrown right into the mix. But you don't have to go offensive line anymore. You can go wide receiver. And a draft, as you've described, Tiki, is one of the deepest wide receiver drafts we've seen in a long time. Maybe you go tight end. Maybe Brock Bowers is the guy that makes sense. You now have the wiggle room of your Joe Douglas to draft the best available offensive player.
Yeah.
Offensive player.
Right. Well, it's like we get sometimes confused about what the free agency, the offseason, the beginning of offseason free agency is really all about. Because it obviously is about making your team better, but it also makes you less desperate for the draft.
Yes.
If you have to go into the draft and you're desperate to get whatever position, let's say quarterback or tackle or wide receiver, you end up having to give up assets to get to where you need to go, right? But what Joe Douglas has done, and Joe Shane, in the same vein, has done the same. They're almost at the luxury to draft the best player.
Yes.
Right? You don't have to worry about, oh, well, we really wanted this guy, but now we got to move because he's not there. We should go back and just take the best available way back there, or we need to move and go forward because there's noise that the guy we really want is going to get gone at 5 or 6 or 7, and we got to move up. You can just sit. The Jets can just sit right now, and that makes it comforting.
Yes.
It's weird because for the longest time, maybe Jet fans were clouded, but for the longest time, the Jets have always felt incomplete, like desperate for something. Last year, despite signing Aaron Rodgers and having Breeze coming back from Achilles, from the ACL, and then the 2 rookies of the year on either side of the ball, it still felt like, but something's not quite right.
Yes.
Right? It feels like there's still like that offensive line is really worrisome. Now, for the first time in a while, it feels like the Jets they're at the luxury to feel like they need, fill the roster like they need to, as opposed to desperation to fill holes.
Yes.
Right, that are just glaring everywhere.
Dude, I think the signing of Tyron Smith changed everything because we all would have sat here for the next month saying they have to take a left tackle.
Talking about left tackle.
That's
is
it.
the left tackle?
And look.
Is it going to be, who is it, Carter Warren?
Right.
Right? Is he going to have to
drafting
start?
somebody
No, but
and
I'm just
relying
saying.
on a rookie.
Right, I'm just saying. Who was it? You going to draft one? What if the guy's not there?
Right.
You got Carter Warren or Max Mitchell, who's still on the squad? What do you do?
A part of why I'm still in love with the idea of still drafting a left tackle, despite the fact they added Tyron Smith, is twofold. Number one, you need depth. I mean, yes, I'm not going to ignore the fact that Tyron Smith missed, 13 games in 2022. I'm not going to ignore that. Or 14 games in 2020. There's an injury question around him. There's certainly an injury question around Elijah Vera-Tucker. So I love the idea of using a premium pick on an offensive lineman who, A, provides insurance, and then, B, provides the possibility of just sitting and learning.
Yeah.
One of the reasons why offensive lines suck in the NFL right now, here's my theory. You correct me if I'm wrong as a former NFL player, is these guys come into the league, and they have no idea what the hell they're doing, and they get no practice time. So guys aren't ready.
No, you're right.
They're ready.
You're right. The offseason is not nearly the same. You're not on the field, not nearly enough, and then you're never in pads. And so how do you get better?
So how do you expect a rookie to have that impact immediately? Look at Andrew Thomas. It took him a year. So I'm not against the Jets still selecting a young offensive lineman in the first round, but they've given themselves this spot now with this signing where they can do a lot of different things. And I'm not ready to say what I'm about to say in a way, but if they can go out and add 2 more wide receivers, and hopefully one of them is Mike Williams, who they are meeting today. Maybe another one of them is Odell Beckham Jr. Maybe another one of them is in this draft. If they could add a couple of receivers after Garrett Wilson, I think the New York Jets, on paper, have a chance to be the most complete team in the NFL going into the start of the season. Now, does that mean they're winning the Super Bowl? Probably not. Something will screw us. We're Jet fans. But on paper, that's why I'm being careful with how I say it, because it's how I really feel. If they can go out and add 2 more receivers, they will, on paper, be the most complete team in the NFL. What am I saying that's incorrect?
Does a head coach count as on paper?
That is a concern.
Because I think you write his name on paper, and I think, maybe this is the roster he needs to take off. I like Saleh, but I don't think you could call a team coached by Robert Saleh right now the most complete team on paper.
Here's what I know. I'm giddy today, and no negativity is going to bring me down. Lee is in Deer Park to kick us off on this fine Monday. How are you, Lee?
I'm the negativity that's going to bring you down. So I just want to make sure I get this straight. Tiki, you played football, but Evan, you're suffering from CTE. Is that correct? Is that how this is working? So I didn't know CTE was contagious, I guess. Or is it just that there's mercury in that beard dye? Is that what it is?
Yes, that's exactly what it is.
Evan, let me explain something to you. First off, here's how low you set the bar. You said the offseason is suddenly good because the quarterback is committed to actually playing the sport. Think of how low that bar is. And he's committed today. But he could go into a darkness retreat in July and decide to change his mind.
I think
you
already
know
went
that.
to one. I think you
it's
went
the
to one
reason
already,
why
Lee.
Green Bay ran him out of town. Could not wait to get rid of him. So keep that in mind. You set the bar very low. And really quickly about the draft, they have to take an offensive tackle because the Smith deal is nice, but he's 33 years old. He's got the bulky legs, and he's on a 1-year deal.
Yeah, it's 1 year.
Like, he'll have the same problem next year. I think the only option in the draft is to draft an offensive
where
lineman.
we'll differ,
They still need them.
differ on this, Lee, is I still lean towards them taking an offensive lineman. I even texted this to the guys over the weekend. Get me another fatty. Get me another big guy on this offensive line. I don't think they're in the same position as they were 3 days ago where they have to, though. I still lean there for the reasons you laid out.
I mean, it's I'm not saying surprising, but Tyron Smith has been such a good player, all-decade team player. You're right. He's likely to be in the Hall of Fame, especially if he has a couple more years of good football because he has missed some time over the last 3. But if something goes awry, now we're right back in the situation. So Brock Bowers, he's compelling. Any one of these wide receivers that are going to be in the top 10 are compelling. But the last thing you need is week 8 to now all of a sudden be stuck with not having a left tackle.
You know who the backup plan could be? And it's not crazy if he's willing to do it. And if Aaron wants to pick up the phone and help recruit, now I'm okay with David Bacteria. If you want to bring in Bacteria now, knowing he's a backup and knowing, yes, there's injury questions around him too, then Bakhtiari, also known as Bacteria, would be a fine addition. Jet fans, my fellow Jet fans, am I crazy? Or are you having that same positive vibe from one of the great Jet weekends we've had in a long time? The quarterback is in. They've added a Hall of Fame left tackle. They've put themselves in a spot in the draft where they can be creative. I am feeling great today.
The New York Jets suck.
That may be me in November. I admit that. But on March 18th, I feel damn good. We'll get to your calls, 877-337-6666. Plus, why is Zach Wilson trending on Twitter all weekend long? Is it a way to bring us all down? We'll get to the Johnny Crybabies coming up in the 3 o'clock hour. We'll hear from the great John Rothstein to get us set for this NCAA tournament.